A new report by Amnesty International seems to show that Joe Biden's promise to restore the soul of the nation is avoiding the soul part near the border, because some of what's going on down at the southern border is pretty similar in effect to what Donald Trump was up to. They put out this report titled Pushed into Harm's Way. It was released earlier today, and it documents the Biden administration's effective continuation of its predecessor's policy of rejecting nearly all asylum seekers at official ports of entry along the US-Mexico border. So look, if you've been following us for the past few months, you know that we have been checking in both legislatively with what they're talking about potentially doing in terms of immigration reform, as well as what they have done and haven't done via executive orders and that sort of thing. So there have been some changes that have been positive that we've given the Biden administration credit for in the past, but some of what they're doing deserves a much closer look, and thankfully Amnesty International is doing that. They say that the new administration is misusing a provision of anti-trafficking legislation concerning Mexican unaccompanied children to deprive them of effective screenings for harm and to deny them access to asylum procedures. And so basically, it's a regulation that certainly has its place to avoid the possibility that kids are being trafficked across international lines, on international borders and that sort of thing. But that's not what is being done in practice. It's just being used as an excuse to bar their entry. There are requirements under the TVPRA, that's the regulation that we're talking about. In that, Customs and Border Protection officials are often not performing child protection screenings faithfully, appropriately, or with reasonable informed consent of the children, who often do not understand what is happening during the process. And thus far, and we'll get to some of the administration statements about this, this has been going on for months. It's resulting in a very large percentage of kids being rejected at the border with no consideration to their possible need for asylum. And that has just been going on. And Biden thus far doesn't seem to have much of a problem with it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so look, this is the problem with corporate media, because when corporate Democrats are in charge, and in the old days when there were corporate Republicans in charge, that hasn't happened in a while. Trump is a weird hybrid, part human, part corporate. Mitch McConnell's purely corporate. Anyway, so when corporate Democrats are in charge, the press totally shuts down. So here's a story from The Intercept initially, then covered by Common Dreams. These are independent, progressive news organizations that are bringing you the reality of what's happening, and an Amnesty International report. There's no question that it's happening, right? But the rest of when Trump turns away kids at the border, oh my God, terrible. Now that's true, that is true. I'm glad they did that. That was good journalism, right? Now when Biden does the same, but it's actually worse than that. What is the main criticism Kamala Harris faced when she did her "Do not come" speech? And by the way, it turns out it doesn't matter if you come, because we'll turn you away anyway, just like Trump did. And the press's main criticism was that she did not do a photo op at the border that the Republicans demanded. That's a right-wing criticism. That's not a legitimate criticism. So the press has been horrible on this, if you ask me. Bridget, what do you think?
I agree. I think it's important to remember that it doesn't matter if there's a Republican or a Democrat in the White House, that we need to have a humane immigration system. People have a right to seek amnesty, and turning away unaccompanied children is a violation of that right. And we should be trying to build a more humane immigration system that really honors that. I think that's what people voted for. People voted for a system that was going to be more humane. I think that you're exactly right that under Trump, some of the horrible things that happened in terms of immigration was covered quite a bit. I would like to see people continue to be outraged, even if there's a Democrat behind those policies.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the kids, about how this process works, how many it might be affecting. So as of right now, in recent history, about 1 in every 3 migrants and asylum seekers from Central America and Mexico is a child, and half of them are unaccompanied by family members or other adults. And so apparently something like 80% of those kids have family members waiting to receive them in the US. Okay, so many of them, the vast majority, have family members potentially that can care for them in the US. Something like half of them are effectively unaccompanied by anyone in their family, anyone they truly know when they hit the border. So when they're turned away, And most of them are. According to this is a report in the Intercept, unaccompanied Mexican children were therefore returned to Mexico in approximately 95% of cases after being apprehended by US Border Patrol. So then what happens to the 50% of the kids who aren't there with family members? I honestly don't know. Does anyone know? Are we just hoping that the people who had accompanied them the last portion of the way to the border are looking out for them? They're gonna care for them? Is anyone checking in on the kids afterward? I feel fairly certain CBP isn't. And as we saw, something like 80% of those kids have family members here who in theory could care for them. Even if you were assuming that at some point they may be deported back to their country of origin rather than just being turned away at the border, that seems like a far more humane situation for those children.
Yeah. So John,
definitely.
Yeah, so there's two different things here, policy and politics, right? So in terms of the policy, Biden still has the Trump policy of if you come as a family, we're gonna reject you carte blanche. So that's why some of the families are actually coming up with the kids, and then the last couple of miles the kids are doing on their own because they know if they come as a family, they'll be rejected. That's also inhumane. We actually have laws in this country, and we are supposed to apply them, and I think they're good laws. Now, Republicans could argue against them, and that's a separate conversation, and that's a policy conversation. And I believe in democracy, and if they win, right? But the laws that we currently have is that if you're coming in as an asylum seeker, well, you go through a process, right? And by the way, a lot of those folks are rejected. So some of them are in imminent danger and they are accepted. And a lot of them, even if they're in a lot of danger but not imminent danger, are sent back, okay? And by the way, you could be against that from the left and say that's way too harsh, right? But Biden's not even getting to that point. He's saying if you're coming as a family, no way, right? And if you're come as a family and then send your kids at the end, well, we'll pretend we're taking them in, but we won't take in most of them. And don't worry, now corporate media is behind me, so they won't question me on that at all. And we'll just do it in the dark of night and get away with it, right? Yeah. Now the politics of it. Now, did it help assuage Republicans at all?
Are they happy?
Yeah, do they look like they're like, oh, okay, Biden is being almost as draconian as Trump. Yay, Biden, okay, that's right, we're all turning around. Turns out Biden's so moderate, he doesn't want these immigrants in the country any more than we do. It turns out he was lying about being humane about them. Yes, we love that he's inhumane. No, it hasn't earned him a single vote. So, and by the way, one more thing about politics. Republicans have this conspiracy theory that the Democrats are bringing in all these immigrants. Tucker Carlson is the biggest advocate of this. Bringing in all these immigrants so they could vote for Democrats. Then why is Biden rejecting all of them? And the very few, and the very few he lets in are minors who can't vote. Well, then why doesn't he let the families in who presumably eventually could vote, right? If your theory is that's the Democratic plan, why are they doing the opposite of the Democratic plan in a Democratic administration that you said you were positive was letting these immigrants in so they could vote for people like Biden?
Well, duh, you let the kids in now so that someday they'll be able to vote for President Hunter Biden. Obviously.
I mean, that's such a good point. I guess I feel that it does seem like Biden is kind of trying to capitulate to Republicans. And what difference does it make? They're never gonna be on his side. He may as well go big when it comes to immigration and have a humane system that really works for more people instead of just trying to play it safe because it's not really getting us anywhere.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.